What role does ancestral healing play in addressing generational patterns or traumas? And also, what steps can we take to kind of break out of that chain?
Basically, what role does ancestral healing play when it comes to generational healing, correct?
Yes. Generational patterns and traumas.
Everything,
Yes.
everything,
Yeah.
everything 100%. Okay. If we think about intergenerational trauma, generational trauma, right? And if we think about, like, you know what? Actually, let's start here. When we think about trauma in general, it comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
When you are born, you are inherently inheriting traumas. You're not like, energetically you were born divine, you were very perfect, but you do carry the traumas of your parents and your ancestors and people who were formidable to you before you were born. It's a thing. All traumas come from somewhere. They didn't just like come out of thin air. I love this question because it's so esoteric in a way. And so how do we like conceptualize all of this stuff in reality? And so I think we talked a bit about this before, but when it comes to ancestral healing and ancestral medicine and wisdom, it definitely passes down generation to generation. And again, we can see this through the progression of epigenetics and how, the family system or any landscape that you're in can influence how you are. So, a great example for this, for example, like say you wanted to be a dancer, go to a dance studio and be friends with dancers, and you automatically pick up on this ability to like move your body like a dancer. You pick up on the steps, on the rhythms, etc. If you are someone
Yeah.
who wants to own and operate a business, consider like making a friend or two in the entrepreneurship world, and you will get so many insights, downloads, because you're around those people. It's the same
Mm.
exact thing when it comes to generational trauma, ancestral trauma, and the way that trauma manifests in the current landscape and reality with epigenetics. You are around certain people and certain systems, therefore certain things will perpetuate. So if in your lineage you were born from like single moms, like they're a single mom, you will probably have a higher chance of being a single mom because there's a lineage that shows that you have single moms in your lineage. Say, for example, there's a lot of like poverty and low income financial insecurities that are currently happening in your landscape, either with you or something that happened with your parents. If you look back generationally, I will probably guarantee that there have been financial insecurity and poverty consciousness that have been happening through your lineage. And so when people are like, oh my God, is ancestral trauma like a real thing? It absolutely is a real thing because you can
Mm.
use it to actually trace a lot of your woundings, etc. I love to use the example of, yeah, bringing traumas to reality because sometimes you can experience a trauma in your real, current, and present life, and there's no explanation for it. For example, I have had women in my business who've come to me about relational stuff that have happened with their partners or maybe like misogyny that they feel, and I'm like, okay, let's unpack the internalized misogyny. Like, this is a great conversation to have, especially in modern society as women. Like, let's talk about it. And they have no idea why they carry the internalized misogyny. They've had incredible relationships with their father, no history of abuse from a male or masculine figure, like women and their brothers or their male friends, incredible relationships. So, like, where does it come from? That would be a great time to map out what has happened ancestrally, because then at that point, if it has not manifested in your current lineage, then you probably have a line to it from your ancestry. We have seen
Mm.
time and time and again in my practice, when you get something that's inherited but not necessarily presenting in like real current time, there's usually a link ancestrally.
Wow. And so,
Mhm.
what are some steps they can take to break out of that chain? I know we talked a little bit
Mm,
about, understanding our triggers and all,
yeah.
but ancestrally speaking, I know you talk a lot about connecting with our lineage. And so, what
Yes.
are those steps that we can take? Like, if the people are in our lives or if they're not,
Mhm.
what are some ways we can actually break out? Because I think nobody wants to continue that lineage
Of
of
course.
poverty or misogyny or any of those.
So, some basic ways to, let's say, like connect and honor the ancestral lineage within your line is to connect culturally and from the heritage perspective. That's a way that I always love introducing this work because it's simple, right? Like, you are Asian and you are Indian or whatever. And so, a great way to culturally connect could be through community, it could be through food, it could be through traditions that you have inside the culture. And it could also be through talking with family members. Talking to family members can be a bit tough. So we'll start with the former first. Something basic that I recommend to everyone who's curious about starting this work lineage wise is to create an altar in your home. And
Mm.
your altar can look like anything. There's no like blueprint for this, but I'll share like stuff that's on my altar. So, on our altar here in our home, we have heirlooms from the family. We have different like photos and stuff like that. And then we have like plants, fresh flowers, candles. We burn incense there. And then, yeah, we have some like artwork and pieces from the Philippines. And so, your altar can look like that. Feel free to essentially like DIY it to however you like. And honoring your ancestral altar can
Yeah.
literally look like going to your altar every single day, AM or PM, and just giving thanks and like offering your gratitude and saying thank you. And again, when you start this practice, it might feel a little bit silly because you're like, who am I talking to? Like, who am I talking to here? But this is just one of those sacred practices of like connecting to the divine and connecting to like God or goddess or like Mother Earth.
That's awesome. And I think it also gives us a sense of
Mhm.
cultural connection as well, because we're taking the time to step out of our day-to-day
Absolutely.
busy day-to-day activities and take a moment to just recognize what our ancestors have provided to us, even though we're in a different country, or even if we are in that
Mhm.
same country, then it's even easier, right? So that's a great
Absolutely.
that's a great response. And I think especially
Yeah.
coming from an Indian family, our altars look more closer to our religion, where we have pictures of our
Yeah.
God and
Yeah.
worship it and really show our
Yes.
gratitude for
100%.
whatever we have. So, yeah, and it can be
Mhm.
different for everyone. It doesn't have to be, like you said, just DIY it and whatever makes us feel
Yep.
closer to our lineage. Great.